Hi, Lair campers. Hi, women's wellness and sports and rec campers. I'm Nancy Hall, and I'm sorry not to be seeing you on the blue lodge deck with my crochet and knitting materials, and on the pool deck at Gold this year, but hopefully we'll be able to do that again next year. I wanted to make this little video so that I could orient you toward needlecraft skills if you want to pick them up or sort of re-engage with them. I have a little crochet demonstration and knitting demonstration. I want to talk a bit about what kind of resources you can find out there to help you along and encourage you to have fun with these things because they are fun. I have just a few things to show you the difference between knitting and crochet in terms of projects and tools. These are knitting needles. There's two of them. They come in different sizes. They come in different materials. These happen to be aluminum. And this is a crochet hook. And they also come in different sizes and materials. And then you have to have something a material to knit and crochet with. So yarn comes in different widths, sizes, and materials. This happens to be cotton yarn that I picked up at Walmart. This is acrylic yarn that I bought probably at Joann's. All this stuff is available at Michael's, Joann's, Walmart, Amazon. The difference between the product of knit and crochet is that crochet, this is a little cozy I made for a coffee cup or a wine glass. Crochet, I don't know if you can see it, it's very sort of knobby in the way it looks. And knit is, this is a washcloth I knit with different stitches, but you can sort of see that it's like a sweater. It's softer and sort of looks like a braid. I made both of these projects with cotton yarn because for a washcloth that's really nice. It softens over time. It's easy to wash. And however, I'm going to do my demonstrations with this acrylic yarn because cotton yarn tends to split the way it's woven, and it's a little hard for beginners. So acrylic yarn is really good for blankets. It's 100% washable. It comes in different thicknesses. This one's called worsted weight. So with different thicknesses of yarn, you use different hooks, sizes, and knitting needle sizes. So I think what I'm going to do is just suggest that try one or the other. Tool. If you really can't get the hang of it with a crochet hook, you may be better off with knitting needles or vice versa. So play with it and see what you like. All of these projects, knitting and crochet, start with a slip knot. So if you were ever a Girl Scout, you may know how to do it, as well as light a fire, which I would not recommend at this time. So the slip knot is easy. You just wind the yarn around your finger, bring up a loop in the middle, and pull it through like so. There's your slip knot. Now, if I were to do this again, I would let this tail be a little bit longer because it just needs to be longer when we start our project because we'll ultimately need to weave it into the material that we create, to the fabric that we create. So you start with a slip knot in both disciplines here. I'm going to give you a little quick lesson on crochet to start with. I'm right-handed, so I have the crochet hook in my right hand. I bring the slip knot over the hook and tighten it. the whole idea here is to create a tension in the yarn that's not so tense that a tightrope walker could walk across it, but not so loose that it's totally loosey-goosey. So somewhere in the middle. And you're going to hold the crochet hook with the hook pointed toward the table. Bring the yarn over the back of it. I'm going to come closer here. And that creates a loop on the hook. Do you see? And then you're going to use the hook to pull the loop through the other loop. Loop through the loop on the hook. And now you just continue that way. Yarn over, pull up a loop through the loop on the hook, and keep going. And what you're creating is a chain, almost like a braid. You're pulling loops through loops, and you see how I'm holding the material so that I'm trying to create a fairly even chain so that all the braids are the same size, just like you're braiding hair. You don't want some really tight and some really loose. Well, maybe you do, but not in crochet. You want to have it kind of even, like so. So then all projects start with a certain number of foundation stitches, but then so you'll have to count, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm not going to count. But I have a certain number of stitches in my foundation there. You'll notice that there's a sort of a braid look on one side and a bumpy look on the other side. You're going to be working into that braid. And it's to be noted that this foundation chain behaves differently than subsequent passes across to create the fabric. So this foundation has its own rules. So the first thing we do is we want to crochet directly into that braid, but the first thing we do is create an extra loop here. We yarn over and pull. No, we don't. No, we don't. I'll take that back. What we do is we don't crochet into the very first chain, the very first V. Do you see all those V's? We don't crochet into the first V. We crochet into the second V from the hook. This one here, we're going to insert our hook into that one, not this first one, but the second one. And wiggle waggle the hook right into there. Then we're going to yarn over, pull up a loop through that first one until we have 2 loops on the hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through the 2 loops on the hook. And there we've made our first single crochet. Then we're going to go after the next V next to it. Do the same thing, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on the hook. Same thing, and you just work your way down the line. You insert the crochet hook into the V. You come from the back to the front over the crochet hook and pull through 1 loop. Then you have 2 loops on the hook and you yarn over and pull through. Whoa, sometimes you have to wiggle waggle a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to continue pretty fast and stop talking so much and tell you that if you make a mistake like I just did, just pull it out and put the hook back in and try again. Insert the hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. You try not to get your crochet, you see that I'm holding it with my thumb. You try not to get it to twist, otherwise you may be working into the back of the work instead of the front, and then that will create havoc. So, and if it's havoc, too bad. It's just a piece of piece of acrylic yarn and you can start over. Okay, let's see. Insert, and now we're at the um, end of that chain, and I'm going to show you the. Whoop, there we go. The result is a chain of single crochet. Now it's only about the width of a pencil, right? And there are and you can see that there's a kind of a braid that has formed along the top of the work. And that's important because remember when I said you don't work into the chain? I mean, you work into the foundation chain in a way that subsequently you don't work that way. So now what we're going to do is turn the work around and come back in this direction. And our work and our fabric is forming up this way. So to make sure that we're on the same, so we just need to yarn over and create a stitch there so that when we turn around we'll be on the right height to continue our work the other direction. Now I wanted to show you this first line now. Instead of coming into the top of the work like we did before, we're going to come in from the side toward me this way. So you're trying to go under those V's now, and you're inserting it in. I don't know if this is hard to do without a camera over my head, but anyway, come underneath that. You'll find a hole there in the work. And you do the same stitch coming back, insert the hook, pull up a loop, and so on. And you just go on down the line. I have to say that there are many resources for all these stitches on YouTube. You can find books in the library. You can buy books at Joann's or on the Amazon. If you can't see what I'm doing or if it's too frustrating, those are all options. And I think the basic thing here is to practice because it does take a little coordination to figure out which hole to put the hook in, and it takes a little time to learn how to do it. So I'm trying to get it. There we go. Sometimes the end of the row gets a little tricky, and I'm pulling on the yarn every once in a while to make more yarn. Okay, so now we have 2 rows. See that? And the next thing I want to do is so we have 2 rows of single crochet. Now I want to make it higher and do double crochet, but first I'm going to show you my example that I already did. This is the same project, and you can see that I did multiple rows. I think I did 3 rows of single crochet, and then I did higher stitches, 2 rows of double crochet, and 2 rows of triple crochet. So you can see just by seeing this swatch here that the single crochet is sort of more tightly together, and the double crochet has more holes in it, and the triple crochet has even more holes in it, and that creates a higher space. So depending on the fabric you want to create, you can create different looks with the height and the size of your stitches. And I think probably to keep this video from being incredibly long, I'm going to stop there with the crochet, and you can look up how to double crochet, how to single crochet. But you always start with a slip knot, a foundation row, and then you work back and forth, building height always on one side so that your crochet doesn't end up, at an angle. So good luck with that. I did want to show you a couple of patterns that I pulled off of a book. I mean, this is how I did it. I just sort of self-taught. I just found books at the library. This was a pattern for a granny square. I'm sorry, it's backwards. I don't know how to fix that video. And then, you know, I picked up how to knit and crochet dishcloths one time at the at Michael's probably. And this was my very first. I can knit. I'm sorry, it's backwards. And had 10 projects, and I figured if a 10-year-old could do it, I could do it too. So, okay, so very quickly, I think I'm gonna show you now. I'm gonna pull out my crochet project. That's how quickly it can pull out. So watch. If you have any animals at home, any cats who want to play with your yarn, and don't leave your crochet out because they'll just undo it. Okay, so we're going to start again with a slip knot for this work. Whoops. The idea here is that you're, let's see, creating a slip knot. You're leaving a big enough tail so that you can weave in the tail to the work later when you've finished with it. And you are going to create a foundation chain on here on this knitting needle just by doing a backwards E. Super easy foundation chain. There are lots of ways to get the yarn onto the needle. I'm just picking up the yarn, turning it, and creating a loop and pulling it up. And you can see that that's creating a little line on the bottom. Do you see that? It's sort of a line along there. If you do it wrong, you'll see that there's no line. So I'm just going to do a few stitches like that. And it's about the simplest cast on that you can do. There are many others that create kind of a different look along the bottom and that create, for example, a braid along the bottom. But this is as many. Let me see, let's just do one more. And then, actually no, let's not do one more. Let's pull that off. Okay. So then you get ready to knit. So there are two basic methods for knitting. It's depending on which you prefer, which hand you like to hold the yarn in. You can hold it in either yarn, the yarn in either hand, perfectly acceptable. It just depends on what you like. I like it in my left hand, and that's called continental style. Some people like to hold the yarn in their right hand, and that's called English style. They also have different names. But the object is to get these stitches over onto this needle. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to put this needle on my right hand underneath the first stitch, bring it up into like a V underneath the first stitch. I'm trying to show how I'm doing that. There we go. And so the needles are kind of in a V, and then you yarn over the back needle, back from you to away from you, and you, whoops, how am I doing this? Insert yarn over, pull up a loop, and bring them both off onto the other side, onto the other needle. Let's try that again. Insert the needle under the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and go off. And as I say, let me see if I can, it's very hard to see it in this video, and you may, you know, some of these TV shows that have overhead cameras can demonstrate this, or even pictures in the book. I'll show you. I mean, this knitting book, it has sort of step-by-step, oh, they're backwards, but it has kind of step-by-step, here's what you do, you know. Here, picture 1, picture 2, and so on. So let's just quickly finish this. Actually, yeah. With the left hand, you can see I'm kind of winding the yarn through my left hand to create a little tension. And once you get a little practice at it, the hardest part about knitting is getting the the stitches off doing what I'm doing right now, which is the foundation row. Right now my yarn is splitting because that stitch I put onto the needle is a little tight. There we go. And you can see I'm using a lot of my fingers to hold on to make sure to the yarn to make sure it doesn't slip off the needle. And almost done. Okay, so we've transferred all of those stitches over onto the other needle, and you can see already that we've created a line of work there. See that? Now we're going to switch hands again. Go back the other way. Switch hands, turn it around. Make sure that we've got a tail hanging there, so don't start knitting with the tail. And make sure that the loops are aligned along the top. And that's what you're going to be knitting into. So I'm not going to show you the right-handed way. I'm not very coordinated on this, but at least I'll show it to you. So this is your yarn that's coming from your skein here. That's the long piece. That's what you want to be knitting with. Then I'm going to hold the yarn in my right hand and stick this second needle in the same manner into the first stitch. Pick up the yarn with my right hand, yarn over the back needle, and pull up the loop, just like I did the last time, and over. The same thing, you insert the needle from bottom to top in the loop. You yarn over with the long yarn, and you pull up the loop. So once again, insert, yarn over, whoa. And see, I'm not very coordinated. Whoa! Okay, that's not good. I'm very uncoordinated with this method. But if you drop stitches like that, just try to look for them and pick them up. And let's try this again. So that's the tail. We don't want that. So insert there we go. Insert the knitting needle in the loop. Yarn over. Pull up a loop and cast it off. There we go. That's better. Now, it's good for me to do it this way. It's good to know both ways, right-handed and left-handed holding of the yarn, because if you get advanced and do projects with a couple of colors, it may be useful if you're knitting with two colors at once to be able to knit with both. Now, what you don't want to have happen is all these stitches over here on this side to go sliding off. So that's what that's why sometimes people prefer bamboo needles, because they're not quite as slippy as these metal needles. Okay, one more. And then my demonstration is going to be done. And it really gets easier the more fabric you create, because it's not as, whoops, I don't think I did that right. Let's try this again. Let me try it with the other hand. It's better. All right. Okay, so there's our developing little piece of knitting. Now there is such a thing as purling, but I'm not going to get into it. It's essentially, well, maybe I'll just quickly say that instead of coming from the underneath of the loop here on the knitting needle, you come from the top and you do this similar thing. But have fun. You can create entire knitted projects with its knit, 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 and do nothing else. And just get started and hope for the best. And that's what I did. I just kept looking up when I got things wrong, and there's so many resources on YouTube now. I'm looking at my list to see if there was anything else I wanted to say. Oh, the very first thing we did was cast on these stitches onto the needle. And the very last thing you will do when you finish all of your fabric here, if you're creating a scarf or whatever it is that you want to make, is cast off. So you've got to get the stitches off the needle, and there's a procedure for doing that. And you know, just know that one craft or the other may suit you better. I hope that's a good intro, and I miss you guys. Hope to see you next summer. Take care. Bye-bye.